Good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I'm your host. And today, man, y'all need to share this out right now. This dude that's coming on has an unbelievable story. It's going to blow you away. I have Mr. Brightside himself, Bobby Jones, on the show. Make sure you share this out and stay with us. This is going to blow your mind. And we are back. Let me bring Bobby on. Bobby, welcome to the show.
Hey, everyone. Man, that's an awesome intro you got there, Ken.
Thanks, man.
Fitting, very fitting.
I spent a lot of money on that.
Yeah,
I didn't make it.
No.
Trust me. But
leave it to the pros.
That's right. That's right. Know your lane and stay in it.
Right.
That's what I always say. But so Bobby, you just reminded me that we met in Dallas at the Chaz Wilson's event, the Connect conference, which was amazing. And I don't know a lot about you. I just know that you have an unbelievable story of trials and tribulations. Will that be putting it the right way? Yeah. And overcoming those things, man. And so I'm excited to hear your story. Why don't you start with tell everybody where you were born and raised?
Yeah, so I was actually born and raised right here where I still reside in Dover, Delaware. And
okay.
And so I literally live like 3 miles from the hospital I was born in, so I didn't go far, but love traveling. So
is that near Philly?
We're about an hour and 20 minutes from Philly. This is one of the reasons why I don't ever really want to leave here, is because it's so close to so many great cities and beaches and things like that. So
New York, you got the Jersey Shore.
Yeah, we were just in New York last week or the week before. So
wow, I was just in Philly, just a couple 2-3 weeks ago.
Buying a car, right?
Yeah, I was there the week before buying another car. So yeah, man. So by the way, if you're ever in Philly, I highly recommend Jim's for the Philly cheesesteak, authentic Philly. Like, I live in Ohio, dude. There's people trying to make Philly cheesesteaks, but
not successfully.
No,
Jim's, they do the sliced ribeye, right?
What's that?
They do the sliced ribeye at Jim's.
I have no idea. I went there because my buddy Frank Crenetti's like, yeah, go down to Jim's right down the street, and it was, oh man, it's worth the drive just to go over there to that place. So you grew up in Delaware, and interestingly enough, I've been to Delaware, because if you're in the west side of Philly, it's like 3 seconds to get to Delaware, and I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, we're pretty close. And that's one of me and my wife, when we go to dinner, we'll drive into Philly because of all the great restaurants there versus down here. So
wow.
It's close. It's very close.
Yeah, it is. So you were born in what city?
It's Dover.
Dover. Okay. Dover, Delaware.
Dover's the capital of Delaware, but it's hard enough getting people to know what Delaware is versus Dover. So typically I have to tell them we're right below Philly, and everybody's like, oh, okay.
So, my daughter, my oldest daughter, lives in Delaware, Ohio.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is right down the street. But so okay, what was it like for you growing up? I mean, did you have any craziness that you had to overcome as a child? What happened growing up for you?
It's funny, Ken. At the time, everything seems so normal. When you're a kid, you don't really have anything to compare it to. So everything that you're experiencing seems normal until you realize it's not. So yeah, there was a lot of bizarre things that I dealt with as a kid that I didn't know were bizarre until later on. So like a lot of people, though, I mean, I grew up super, super poor. My parents struggled with addiction. So, my life took kind of a detour when the state stepped in and put me and my sister into foster homes. And so we kind of
Wow.
took a few trips in and out of different foster homes. I remember in my sixth grade school year, I went to 6 different school districts because I was moving through different homes so often. And so
Jeez.
again, but at the time, like obviously now I look back and I'm like, wow, that's so crazy. But you don't have anything to compare it to at the time. And so it did seem, a lot of my childhood seemed normal. Obviously, foster care felt weird because we were in and out of strangers' homes and things like that. But yeah, it was not typical to most. But I also don't regret any of it. It really made me a better person today. I can help mentor and consult with kids that are coming out of the foster care system. So I'm very grateful for what I experienced, at least in that area of my life.
Did they keep you and your sister together?
They again, I'll give them credit. They tried to for as long as they could, but we did end up in separate homes and spent most of the time separated. And I had an older brother
Wow.
too that actually ended up with my grandparents. So we were all separated for a good portion of that foster care stint.
Wow. Wow. So you that would be tough, man. I mean, I'm assuming you knew your sister pretty well. I mean, and then you're getting separated. That had to be tough.
Yeah, me and my sister are Irish twins. We're 10 months apart. So,
Wow.
yeah, so mom went in for a 6-week checkup and found out she was pregnant with my sister after having me. So, um,
Wow.
but yeah, we were very close, obviously, almost the same age. Actually, we were the same age for 2 months out of the year. And
Wow.
so, it was hard. But again, it's like we were conditioned to roll with the punches throughout our childhood. So it was just one of those things. It was like, okay, this is one more thing to just handle and deal with. And again, it's easy to look back on my childhood and a lot of people sympathize, but I definitely am not looking for sympathy. I'm very grateful for what I experienced there.
Yeah.
I have regrets in my life, but it's not in that. So
Wow. So I mean, did you stay in the foster system your entire childhood? What happened?
no, so like I said, we were in and out all the way up until that period of time that I just described, which was the longest stay in foster care. And then I'll tell you, Ken, we don't really have a good explanation for why we went home when we did because conditions weren't any better. When we went home, me and my sister both, we went home to a single wide trailer that had no electricity. Neither one of my parents had a job, a driver's license, or a car, and we had an extension cord ran from our neighbor's house over to our house to run our refrigerator and our television. So I look
What?
yeah, I tell you, and I've got a lot of friends in the family services industry and career field now, and so we talk about this often. But that was something that we've always asked questions about as to why we went home at that time. Like nothing really had seemed to improve. And so, right about
Oh,
at that same time, Ken, and again, please feel free to stop me at any point, but right about at
no.
that same time, my mom had started, she had discovered that she had cancer at the same time. So she was already battling addictions and she had gotten cancer, and they had prescribed my mom 160 milligram Oxycontin to deal with the pain left from the surgeries that removed her cancer. And so this
Wow.
turned my mom into a slumbering, just absolutely, um, you know, uh, she was sleeping most of the time, like just would take this medicine and turn into a zombie almost and go to sleep. And it was really unfortunate because at that same time, I'm getting into my teenage years, my 13, I think I was about 13 at this time, and nobody was watching me. And so I just like my dad was, in and out of different jobs and things like that. He would work for, different careers or jobs. And then I would, while he's at work, just be running the streets. So I'd skip school. I'd, go hang out with all the wrong people. And so I got
Wow.
arrested for the first time at 13 years old. And then,
Wow.
I'd get arrested again at 14. And when I got arrested at 14, it was a little bit more serious. So they actually I was actually away for almost 2 years on that arrest. So I didn't come home until I was almost 16 years old.
So, so the first time you got arrested, you were 13. Was it from like going door to door trying to sell, cookies or something, or?
No, I wish. No, again, running with the wrong people. I ended up breaking into a house and stealing a bike. And I got caught. It was bizarre. I got caught like 6 months later. So, it was so commonplace to me at the time that I think I even forgot about that bike. And, a cop came knocking on my door, and, I didn't know much about the system or anything like that. And so I just, I let this cop basically tell me to confess to it, and I did. And I got put on probation for that. And then when I ended up getting in trouble in school for marijuana possession, and that's what sent me away the second time. And
Wow.
that was actually, I actually ended up supposed to only do like a 60-day program and in Philly. And I ended up getting into a fight 2 weeks into a 60-day program, and they violated my sentence, sent me back before the judge, and my judge sent me to another program. So the arrest could have been in and out, and yet I turned it into almost a 2-year sentence by being a knucklehead.
60 days doesn't really qualify as in and out.
I know, but it would have been a lot better than 2 years, Ken.
I know, but still, dude. I mean, that's a long time, man. And 2 years is way longer. But
yeah.
Wow, man, that's crazy. So, it was all marijuana, and then you got into a fight.
Yep.
And you said in a program, was that like a halfway house kind of thing, or?
Well, so everything juvenile has to be a program, at least in Delaware. So if you get sentenced to something in Delaware as a juvenile, your time that you actually sit waiting to get to the program doesn't count at all. So I had to wait. I think I waited for 90 days to get to the 60-day program anyway.
Waited where?
In a detention center here. Yeah, it's a wild.
So there's no like time served.
Nope.
Not
for juvenile,
dude.
Yeah. So, but it was a blessing in disguise, honestly. And I know everybody says that, but what happened during that 2-year period, Ken, everybody that I was hanging around with, very close, like my best friends, my family, like everybody around me either, went deeper into addiction or created addictions that they didn't have while I was home. And so I truly believe, had I been home during that time, I would have created and developed an addiction as well. And I truly think back on that time as a moment that just kind of saved my life. And somebody, somebody somewhere, I believe that something was steering the ship and, made sure I wasn't home for that addiction process.
And Doug brings up something that's interesting. You and I talked a little about it before the show. I went through some similar things as a kid. Talk about what Doug brings up. I'll bet you were scared to be in jail at 14. Talk about that, because I think I know the answer, but like, go ahead, man. Tell everybody what that's like at 14.
Yeah, it's really scary, of course, because you've heard all these stories and which rightfully so. I mean, make jail sound horrible because we shouldn't be looking forward to it at all. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But it wasn't what had been explained to me. My dad used to joke and tell me that I'd only have one piece of stale bread per day, and quite the opposite was true, especially in juvenile facilities. I actually felt like I ate better in juvenile facilities than I did at home. So So it was scary going in. And then of course you are exposed to, violence that they try to supervise and make sure doesn't happen, but it's there and it's waiting for you. And so the real fear, and I know I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but honestly, it's a lot to cover if you want the story. So
Yeah.
when I turned 18, I turned 18 in March and had to turn myself in for a prison sentence in adult prison in April. So I was like a fresh 18 later on in life. And my first cellmate was a 2-time convicted murderer, had two double life sentences. And he was like this guy that was like 6'2". I mean, just huge guy that, could have squashed me if he wanted to. And so, as a fresh 18 going into that situation, we have a classification process in our prisons here. So you go through a lot of the prisons before you get to the place you're actually supposed to be in. And so I was in maximum security with a guy who had 2 consecutive life sentences. And
For
so
murder.
for murder, yeah. And so that was terrifying.
Hold on. I think we just accelerated into
I'm
the
sorry.
Twilight Zone, man.
Yeah.
So let's go back to 14. You spent 2 years in a juvenile. Was it like a juvenile detention center?
Yeah, so it was a combination.
And just so everybody knows, they still have steel doors and
Oh,
all of
yeah,
that
it's
in those.
level 5, so it's maximum
Yeah.
security in both situations.
Yeah.
My juvenile facility, it was a combination of a few different, stays. So again, the detention center, which is kind of like the pretrial holding facility as you get determined where you're gonna go and the judge sentences you. So
Yeah.
I spent probably out of the 2 years, I probably spent about 10 months in that facility. Went to the program, came back to that facility, and then ended up in a program they call Ferris, which is a 6-month long program if you're good. And as you all can probably assume, I wasn't good. So I ended up in that facility for, I think, 10 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then you were 16, you got out, right? At
Yes, sir.
16?
Yes, sir.
And then you joined the Boy Scouts and cleaned up your act.
No, I
Oh,
should have. So, it was actually funny. I came home, and I actually went back to the same home we talked about before. And conditions really hadn't gotten much better. Although I will say that my mom and my dad separated, and we ended up going to another town near here called Bridgeville. And that's actually when I met my wife. And I want to give her big time shout outs and credit here. Heather, I don't know if she's watching, but I I'll tell you guys, man, this girl has been with me since this moment that I'm explaining to you guys now, and is still
wow.
rocking with me today. And so I'm very grateful for her. So, but she met a guy who she thought was, a decent looking guy who looked like he had a couple of coins in his pocket. And she would later find out that at the time that I met her, I had moved in with my dad in a camper, living behind my uncle's house. So I was living in a camper when I met my wife. And so she stuck it out with me. Unfortunately, though, I hadn't figured my direction out yet. And so I was still a knucklehead. I was still getting into trouble. And I
And
ended
this
up
is what age? What age did y'all
this
meet?
was 16. I met her at
16. Oh,
16.
okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And
Wow.
so we ended up I ended up getting back into trouble. I was back in Dover, which is north of where I was staying, and I ended up getting into a situation with some of my family members where someone that we interacted with owed us money. We went to take the money from that person, and we got caught, and they arrested us for robbery. And
Wow.
so I had turned 17, like, right before this happened, and they, because of my previous criminal history, charged me as an adult. So
Wow.
this is the case that I would eventually go to adult prison for that I explained to you guys. So, um,
So was it just robbery or armed robbery, or
it
was there
was it
any?
was robbery first, and then I pled to robbery second, with an assault charge with it.
Wow.
Um Yeah, and so that was I was convicted at 17, but charged as an adult, so that went on my adult record. And,
Wow.
Ken, I don't know how much detail you want to go into all this because, and I'm very happy to do so, but there's a lot to discuss. I mean, I would come home after that time, get arrested for selling cocaine,
Wow,
go
dude.
go back to jail, come home, get arrested for a burglary, come home, get arrested for another burglary. So, and
Wow.
that brings us to the case that almost put me away forever.
So
And
they made that's you're the one that created the word recidivism.
yeah, it
Like,
was definitely based on I definitely added to the numbers quite a bit myself.
jeez.
And
Wow.
then the title they would give me in court was the habitual offender, career criminal.
Wow.
And because a lot of my charges were different charges, right? So like if I'd only had one thing that I did repetitively, believe it or not, they would have probably been more lenient on me because I had one, you know,
Yeah.
characteristic or one area in which I was having these issues. And without an addiction to explain my criminal behavior, they really looked at me as a menace to society. And so as a
Wow.
result, my first plea, if anybody's familiar with the court system, they offer you a bargain, which is if you plead guilty to this particular charge, we'll lighten your sentence. We'll make a recommendation in court for you to only serve a certain amount of what you would have been liable to serving. And so my first plea was for 33 years. And I had been through this before, so I kind of knew what was going on, and so I expected that the next time we went to court that would drop down, and it didn't. So every single time I went to court, they said, "Well, they're still offering you the same plea at 33 years." And I would later learn,
Jeez.
again, I was so young at the time still that I really didn't understand everything about it. 10 years of that 33 sentence was backup time from all the other previous cases that
Oh
as
my
I
God.
violated, that was a non-negotiable 10-year sentence that was following with me that I had no idea that was going to be the way it would be structured later. And so, and the worst thing about this, Ken, is, as I stated earlier, I do have regrets, right? During this period of my life, I harmed people, I hurt people, and I deeply regret that stuff, right? I wish I never brought harm on anybody else. But everything that I went through as a result just, conditioned me and built me and made me stronger, as the saying goes.
Yeah.
Uh, but because I was caught red-handed guilty in this situation, I really had very little hope. So I spent the next 7 months in pretrial praying, hoping, and wishing for 5, 10, 15 years. At this point, my oldest daughter had already been born. My first daughter had been born.
Wow.
I actually met my daughter in prison on a previous prison stay, um,
Wow.
which was, heartbreaking all in its own. But I just really wanted another chance. I know everybody says that and I know everybody wants that, but I just really wanted another chance because despite all the data that I had collected over the years as to what my life was probably going to end with, I always felt like there was something in me that was just great. Like I felt like I was going to do something great one day, and this gut feeling was suppressed by all the data that just said, "Nope, you're just insane," and there's no reason to really believe this. And so,
And what's crazy, man, just let me go off for a second.
go ahead,
What's
man.
crazy is you didn't have an addiction problem. Like you didn't have an alcohol and drug. Your addiction was selling the drugs and other nefarious things. But like there was no addiction, which is 99% of the people that are in locked up.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Wow.
that's why they were so tough on me, is there wasn't this explanation, and not that, that gives anybody an excuse, but really that was the thing. It was a criminal pattern. It was a behavioral pattern. And it was so bizarre because here I am looking at all this time, and I was only 21 at the time. I was only 21 years old, and that's what's so crazy is from 17 to 21 I had accumulated 4 separate felony, well, this would have been my 4th separate felony conviction in
What?
4 years. And so it was record time. I promise you, it was record time. Um,
Wow.
and so praying, I just, I didn't know what I was praying to. I'm not, super religious. I am spiritual in the way that I just believe that there's a balance out there. And so I just prayed to whatever was listening or whoever was listening. Like, if I get another chance at this, I promise you, I'm not going to mess it up. And so I just wanted to, 5, 10, 15 years, something that was my version of a miracle, Ken, was going to be 5 years, 10 years, right? And so I
Yeah.
get to trial. We go all the way through all the court cases. We get to trial. My public defender comes to me because I couldn't afford a lawyer. My public defender came to me and was like, hey, listen, why don't we take 4 of you guys from the holding cell inside the courthouse, down below the courthouse, right? Take 4 of you guys and take you into the courtroom and see if the witness/victim can identify you. And I was like, I mean, I literally got caught red-handed by this guy. He spoke to me. I doubt he's going to make a mistake in the courtroom. And so the guys that they bring in, one of them's like this older white dude with a beard, right? And there's another guy who's Spanish and has a tattoo on his face. And then there's another white guy that's got like the gauges in his ears and a tattoo on his face too. So long story short, none of the other 3 people looked like me at all. And we get into the courtroom. They sit me down in like the jury box area. And the guy walks in, the witness/victim, they escort him into the room. He looks me dead in my face and says, the man that did this is not in the courtroom today.
Dude, are you freaking kidding me?
Not one bit, man. Not one bit. And the crazy thing is, Ken, like I spent years trying to figure out why. Like, I was like, what? Because he never missed a court date. Like I said, he was there. He never missed a single court date. Like, I never expected in a million years that there was anything like that could possibly happen in the courtroom. And so
Wow.
when it did, like, I mean, obviously I had family in the courtroom. I think Heather was there. It was just like, we were like, you've got to be kidding me. And I went home the same night. And so,
are you serious, dude?
Ken, all the violation, all the other time for the violation was dependent on this new conviction. So without a conviction, they couldn't violate me on any of the other stuff. And so once this new case got dismissed, all the other stuff got dismissed along with it. And here's what I learned. Like, I'm going home and I know 100% what's waiting for me if I get back in trouble. Right?
Yeah.
And so I go home with this, like, I'm absolutely convinced that I'm just not going to get in trouble. But I was that way every other release too. And so I'm like, but this time I'm like, okay, I know what's waiting for me if I do. But the other problem is as I try to get employed, I have 3 felony convictions now, right? And I'm like, every single time I put an application in with a conviction on my application, right, a felony conviction on my application, I don't even get an interview.
Right.
So I was like, look, I'm going to stop making excuses, right? This is really where my victim mentality, I'm telling you, when I got released suddenly from prison, I didn't just get released suddenly from prison. I got released from a lifetime of victim mentality. I got released from all the scars of my childhood, all the trauma, everything. In that moment, it all went away.
Just boom.
I just embraced the idea that if it's to be, it's up to me. It ain't nobody else going to do it for me. I've got to do this. So I went home, convinced and just convicted to get a job. And so I borrowed a suit off of my cousin. My cousin is 6'2". I am 5'9". It was a big suit.
Oh my God.
So, but I had envisioned this version of myself that was successful. And when I envisioned this version of myself that was successful, in my vision, it was a version of me wearing a suit. Now,
very large suit.
Well, it fit him a lot better in the imagination. But so what I did is I put that suit on. I got a haircut from a guy in the trailer park. I was living with my uncle on his couch at the time because neither one of my parents had a place for me to stay. So I was living on my uncle's couch, and I walked into Walmart and I said, I'm here for my job interview. And they said, what? We don't have you scheduled for an interview. I looked the lady dead in her face. I said, I'm sorry, ma'am. My interview is scheduled for 11 o'clock, but don't worry. I'll just have a seat here and I'll wait. And you let me know when they can be with me. So I waited there for 45 minutes, Ken.
Oh my gosh.
Sitting on the bench back near the layaway section of this Walmart, right? And this manager peeks his head around the corner. His name was Assistant Manager Ron. I'll never forget it. He peeks his head around the corner. He sees me in a suit, and he's got to be thinking in his head, the guy wore a suit to this thing. Let me at least chat with him, right? So
a very large suit.
I had my arms like this so that they wouldn't hang past my hands. Um, it was wild, man. I joke about it
Oh,
all the time. Of course, I
dude.
have better fitting suits today, but
Oh my
that
God,
was
that's
it for me, man.
hilarious.
That was the chance. And so I got back there. They gave me a temporary part-time position in electronics. And what's super funny, Ken, and this is one of those chip on your shoulder moments right here, because as I was walking back in my big suit to be interviewed, one of the ladies that was in a management position of some kind laughed and joked with the manager and said, what are you interviewing for, a salary position there? And to this day, Ken, I joke and I say, absolutely, he was. Absolutely.
Wow,
I went on
dude.
to be a manager of that store. I ran the whole left side of that store.
Wow.
4 years later, I got promoted over and over and over again and ended up running the whole left side of that store. And I took all the training I could possibly take.
Wow.
Every time that they would offer a training somewhere else, I'd go. I'd learn as much as I could about management and leadership and everything I could from Walmart. So I give Walmart a lot of credit for that. Obviously, I had to take the
Wow.
initiative, but it was an opportunity they graced me with.
So, and this was at what, 21 years old is when you started your Walmart career in a suit.
Yep. Yep. This was 2007. I think I got the job right then. Yep.
Wow.
Right in 2007.
So, wow, dude, that's incredible. And did the felony convictions come up in the interview? I mean,
No, but it's funny you say that, because I was terrified throughout the process because I was being promoted, and the next level of promotion for me required another background check. And
uh,
so I kind of got nervous at that point and was worried that once I got promoted, it would all, I'd lose my
yeah,
job basically. But I ended up leaving there for other reasons to start a business. So it worked itself out. But there was a
wow.
time where because I was actually in charge of the sporting goods department where they sold guns. And so I was like, I tried to stay away from that
Oh,
department as I could, because I was like, man, this probably shouldn't be happening, but
oh my
I made sure there were people in that area
God.
that were the people for that responsibility. So
Wow.
yeah, so but it's just it's crazy, because if I asked anybody, they would have told me I can't do that,
Yeah.
right? If I would have asked anybody, they'd be like, oh no, you can't get a job there for this reason, you can't get a job there for that reason. And that would come up later on too. And there's many times where people project their self-limiting beliefs on you. And so if I'd have listened to them, I would have never did that. I never taken that shot, never taken that chance. And it saved my life, man. It saved my life. It showed me that right? Because when I first got the job, I was like, if I can get this job and everybody said I couldn't, and I didn't believe I could, then what about getting promoted? And then I was like, well, shoot, if I got promoted to this point, well, why can't I get promoted to that spot? And I was literally breaking through all
Yeah.
of my self-limiting beliefs. And every single time I challenged the next one, I was like, I can't get that, or can I? And I would just go after that a little bit harder. So I was just smashing through self-limiting beliefs, and it was changing the way I was looking at life for sure.
So you go back to the how long were you in this how long did you have the two-time murdering cellmate?
So that particular, we call them cellies, but that particular celly,
Skelly.
yeah,
How did I not know that?
he was, I was only in there, I think 3 weeks. And that was in maximum security prison. So everything is maximum security. Like you can't come and go or anything like that. You're obviously in prison clothes, but there are certain buildings that have more privileges. And so that one was 23-1. You were locked in the cell 23 hours. You were out for 1.
With a guy that's been convicted of 2 murders.
Yep.
And you were there on a
robbery
charge. That seems like a good match. I'm kidding. That sounds insane to me. Was he a nice guy?
Yeah, luckily, yeah.
See, that's what I mean. I know it sounds crazy to say that, but he probably just made some really, well, it sounds like he made a couple at least of really bad choices.
Right.
So you're at Walmart, you're running half of the store, and you decide you want to start a business.
Yeah, so it's funny because when I left Walmart, I actually went into a sales position for a roofing company,
Okay.
and with the intention of eventually starting my business. And so I was there. I was with that company for about, so this was 2011, right? So released in
Okay.
2007, 4 years with Walmart. 2011, I leave and I'm working in another roofing company, a roofing company in sales, which for the first time in my life, my direct effort this week can determine my check next week, right? And so it was another breakthrough for me. I did really well in roofing sales, and within about 6 months of doing that, I ended up starting my first business with one of the other people that worked with that company as well. And so,
Wow.
most people that have reached some level of success have seen a lot of failure. I had seen a lot of failure in other ways, and I hadn't really seen it in business yet. And so that first business that we created, we started with the idea that we were going to be the cheapest roofers, and we
Mhm.
were going to get a lot of business because we're going to be the cheapest, because we could afford to be, because our overhead was low. We had all these reasons that justified that. Oh, we don't have to charge as much because we could do this, and that. And as a result, we had cheap work, we had cheap laborers, we had cheap products, and of course, our performance of our projects didn't satisfy our customers the way that they should have, and the way that we really could have. And so I
Yeah.
ended up selling my share of that business in 2013 and starting Brightside, which most people know is my main company now.
Brightside is roofing.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Brightside Exteriors is a roofing company here in Dover, Delaware. I formed the company with my uncle and my cousin, and since then they all still work with me. My brother works with me. Um, my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, tons of friends.
Wow.
And I actually was able to exit that business last year. I still own it, but I have somebody in the position of running that business for me. So
There's an old saying, and it goes like this: the sweet, sweet taste of low cost is long gone after the bitterness of poor quality sets in.
yes,
And
it's
that's
my
you
favorite.
just told a story about it. Like,
Yep,
it's true. You can't, if you're undercharging, you can't provide service. Like,
that's
it's
correct.
people don't get it. Oh, I'm getting a great deal, and they want to beat you up. Well, you're going they have to sacrifice something.
Yeah, when we
So
started this business, we went the other way. We said, "Listen, how can we justify being the most expensive?" And
yes.
we reverse engineered from there, and we said, "Okay, well, we would need to offer this, and this, and then we'd have to add things that aren't even in the standard of roofing in this area." And so we really did. We changed. I mean, there are things that we do in the process of roofing replacements that I don't think any of my competitors are doing at all, and
Yeah.
that's nationwide. So it's been a lot of fun, and we've been able to, if there's a customer in the supermarket and I walk past them, I can
Yeah.
greet them and say hello to them because I know that the project's performing the way that we expected it to.
I think, and Doug Wing, who's one of my best friends in the world, he owned the Little Giant Ladder Company.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, his
Use those a
dad,
few times.
huh?
I said we've used those a few times.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, they're the best ladders in the world, and they're the most expensive ladders in the world. Literally double what
Right.
his competitors charge.
Yep.
But they're the best,
Yep.
And so we've had a lot of conversations about that. And dude, I think that I've said for years I know nothing about being a contractor, but I'm gonna become one, and I'm gonna name my company We Actually Show Up
Yes.
LLC.
Yeah.
Because contractors don't show up, man. They don't
That's
do.
it.
They
A lot of
just
them can
don't.
win by just showing up. If they and I mean, it's amazing how most of the time when I'm talking to a homeowner in this area, they'll be like, "Well, they came, they talked to us, but they never
Yeah,
gave us a price." I was like, "What are they in the making of friends business? Like, what
I
is going
know,
on
it's
here?"
insane, man. And then after, like, I have a I don't know what you call it, a ridge cap on my roof that needs
Rich man.
fixed.
Yeah.
And I call a friend, like, didn't even, and he's never showed back. He's like, oh, I can fix that for $140. I'm like, that's it, done, let's do it.
Right.
Never showed up.
Yeah.
avoids me at church. I'm like, dude, what the heck? So, and Doug's right. There are a lot of flakes in construction.
Yeah.
But it's people don't stay focused on what's most important, and that's the customer.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And that's the thing, when you get down to it, the price is the least important part of the sale. If you can bring enough value,
Yep.
and the other thing is you should be bringing way more in value than you can charge anyway. Like people ask me all the time, like, what should you be charging? Should I be charging? I probably should be charging $3,000 a square. The market
Right.
doesn't support that, but I'm still going to be one of the most expensive in my area because I'm
Yeah.
bringing way too much in value. And the
Right.
guy that's running my business now, he was the one that trained me in sales at the original business years before. And
Wow.
one of my favorite lines from him, and anybody, you guys can take this and apply this in any of your businesses as well. We might be at 14,000 or 15,000 for our roof. They'll be at 10 or 11, and he'll look the homeowner dead in their face and say, "That guy's charging you too much." And then they're like, "What are you talking about? You're at 15." And he's like, "Yeah, but for what they're offering, I'd be at 8."
Oh, dude. That's freaking genius. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite lines. I can't take credit for it. He taught me that one, and I love that.
Wow. So let's talk about, you know, so this show is called Breakthrough Walls. It should be now and slamming down roofs or something. But so talk about that. You mentioned earlier that you had a huge paradigm shift when it came to the victim mentality.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know incredibly successful people that still carry a victim mentality. I know people, they're not very many successful people that carry that, but there's a lot of people who are stuck in life that are walking around like a victim in everything that happens. And so talk about that a little bit more, where you had that shift and realization, because you had to have had a realization, an awakening of sorts, that, man, I've been walking around a victim all this time.
100%. This is so good, Ken. Great question, because I was taught that way. Like my dad would always talk about, like, if we pulled up and a nice car was next to us, he would simply look right at them and say to me, they were probably born with a silver spoon in their mouth. I never imagined that people that had good things, nice things, actually worked for the things that they had, right? So I was convinced that these people were dealt a different set of cards than we, the Joneses, were dealt, which is kind of ironic in the way of keeping up with the Joneses. But,
Yeah.
But so for me, I was always felt like the success that people talk about was for other people. Like I even talk about this often. I always say that in the classroom, the teachers would always say, like, you can be anything you want to be as long as you work hard and do all those things. I never thought she was talking to me. I thought she was talking to the rest of the classroom. I excluded myself from that mentality because I literally thought it was for people born with better situations and cards better dealt to them. And so I grew up that way. Now, in that moment in court, right, gratitude just took over my life. Like I was so grateful. I was grateful for nothing, and I was grateful for everything, right? Like I went home with like no clothes, no money.
Wow.
I graciously, my uncle let me sleep on his couch, but you couldn't tell me anything. I was so happy. I was so full of gratitude. I couldn't complain. I wouldn't complain about anything. And that's really where the name comes in. I know the name of the company is Brightside, but for me, from that moment on, I always looked at life as in a way that it could be so much worse. Like I would take my situation, and no matter what I was going through, I would imagine a worst case scenario, and then I would punch on and I'd push on and I'd move forward. And so that's what took over. Gratitude took over my life. And as a result, ownership over my life took over. I no longer made excuses and blamed other people because I was given a chance that I didn't think I'd ever have.
So this back to, for anybody just joining, back to that moment when the guy was in the courtroom, the victim, and you were among three other dudes, and the guy said, that man, the man that did that to me, is not in this courtroom. And then so then like it's dismissed, I guess, at that moment. And you go through, you have to be processed out of the system. During that whole period of time, I mean, was there ever a thought like, is this real? Like, is it,
Oh,
are they going to change their mind, or are they going to go, wait a minute,
oh, yes.
I'm sure there was like a
Yeah, I was
there
like,
had
hurry
to
up
be
before
many.
they figure out what they did here. They made a mistake. And part of me feels guilty because again, I was guilty for this. And that's why like the way I move today is like with this idea of giving back so much, especially in the same area where I did most of the dirt that I had done. But to answer your question, yeah, I was like, hurry up before they change their mind, get me out of here
Right.
before, they figure out what they've done. And even once I got home, it was like this too good to be true kind
Yep.
of feeling, right? And so but it does click in, and you do like I always joke that, and I'm not an entertainer by way of like musician, but my brother was. And so they have a saying in entertainment industry, like the show must go on.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so for me, like that's really what kicked in is like, okay, all right, now this is, this. And I actually thought about this back then. I was like, this could make for a really cool story one day, but it ain't gonna matter if I don't do something with it. And so like I was like, so the show must go on. I still, now that I'm out here, I have to feed myself. I
Yeah.
have to, and at the time, my daughter and my wife were living in Seaford. I couldn't go there because of all the bridges I burnt through, all the knuckleheaded stuff I had done. So I had to hustle and grind to get us into a home. And I remember Ken, I joke about this, and hopefully Heather's watching. If she is, I'll give her credit again here, because when we got our first home, it was in the same trailer park, by the way, that my uncle lived in. I got a 2-bedroom trailer, and you couldn't tell me anything. I thought I was in a mansion. I was like, I was so happy. Like I said, gratitude just took over my life. I was moving us into this 2-bedroom trailer that had no yard. But to me, it was, I mean, I met my wife living in a camper. I've been living on my uncle's couch. I've been living in a prison cell for a long time myself. And
Wow.
so for me, like this 2-bedroom trailer, I told my wife, I remember this like as yesterday. I told my wife, we were sitting on the front stoop, and I said to her, honestly, I know this isn't much, but I could live here the rest of my life and I'd be happy. And she looked me dead
Wow.
in my face, Ken, and she said, this'll do for now. And so
Go Heather.
a lot of people might look at that and say, wow, she's kind of ungrateful in that moment. But no, what she told me in that moment, Ken, was that she believed in me. She believed that I could do more than that. And I
Yeah.
was like, wait, I can do more. You think I could do more than this? And then I started to think that maybe I could do more than this.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm telling, man, it's so wild. And now, like,
Bobby, tell me you don't live in a trailer park now.
I don't live in a trailer park now. I actually about a month or so ago almost bought one. So
What, a trailer park?
yeah, I'll keep you posted on that if it ever
I
happens.
love it, dude.
So,
That's freaking awesome, man. So I think that man, you are literally the epitome of what this show is about. You really are. And I wish this story could be piped throughout the prisons across America, quite frankly.
it actually is. And I don't want to put a plug on your show, but I have a good friend that just created a system. The prisons are now allowing inmates to carry a tablet during specific
Wow.
times of the day.
That's
So they
awesome.
actually have access to a podcast that was put out specifically for inmates to hear these stories. And so I was interviewed on that podcast last 2 months ago, and it's now being piped into. So there is something in the process, and I hope that it grows. I hope that your show can, people just like you spreading the word that you're spreading they get access to these messages, because there's plenty of stories like this that can show people that currently believe the same thing that I believed, right? That all the hoorah stuff of you could be anything you want to be, it applies to other people. It doesn't apply to people that were dealt these cards. No, it does, man. I'm here to tell you it does. It does for every single one of us who's willing to take ownership of our life, get out of a victim mentality, and work for what we deserve.
I think, you know, that's a perfect segue into my last couple of questions. The first one I ask everyone, and that is, um, and the number one answer to this question is fear. So I expect you to do better than
All right.
that.
Thank you for telling
Um,
me up front.
yeah. So in your opinion, what holds people back from two different things? Number one, real financial success in life. And number two, happiness, being free.
Man, it's funny because those two things, you know, really I would recommend and suggest that you find out what makes you happy first, right?
Yep.
Um, this is a journey that is not easy to take, but I really recommend that when people discuss happiness, that they really go to a place where if everything that you think matters to you today was gone, could you find a way to be grateful and happy alone and by yourself? And that's a tough question to ask because it puts you in this place of now you're not dependent on anything else making you happy, right? We hear these stories of people who go through divorce or, you know, have a loss. And of course, there's time to grieve and time to mourn people. But at the end of the day, if your happiness is in the control of anything else, then you can set yourself up for failure by allowing your happiness to be determined by somebody else. So I always say that try to imagine yourself in a position where it's just you. Could you find happiness? And if you could identify that, how, where, what's making you happy in that moment, and then try to bring that to a reality now. And this is a deep conversation. Definitely don't have enough time to go completely into this, but that is my number one recommendation when it comes to happiness. And I think happiness and self-love and that conversation is a very direct and connected conversation to have. And then when it comes to success by way of money, man, it's interesting because I feel like people don't think they deserve it. And I think when you have that conversation about self-love, you then get to this point where you do feel a lot more self-worth, you feel a lot more self-value, and you can embrace the idea that you are worth it. And not just that you're worth it, because that then evolves to I deserve this, right? Once you get past the idea of you're worth it, you're worth having a successful business, you're worth the promotion, then you get to this point where not only are you worth it, but you deserve it. And if you deserve it, then you owe it to yourself and it becomes your responsibility to go after. I know
Amen.
that's a lot to go into.
No, dude, I agree with you. You know, and this is related a little bit, but you know, especially in the last year and a half, you know, suicide rates just skyrocketed. And I can remember, man, and I'm sure you have moments too, but my wife and I opened up our first office, I don't know, back in 2009 or 10, something like that. And I had a handful of employees. And this one day, this big dude that worked for me comes walking in my office. He's like, "Hey, boss, there's some dude out in the parking lot looking in the windows of your SUV." And I'm like, "Dude, why are you telling me? Go tell him to get the hell out of here. What? You're bigger than I am." And he's like, "I would, but he has it blocked with a tow truck." And I was
Uh,
like, "Ah,
yeah, that
no."
was you probably should have led with that.
Yeah, right. I think he's getting ready to repo your car. And so I go out there, and I don't know if you've ever tried to talk the repo man out of taking your car. It doesn't work. And I was humiliated in front of my employees. And I remember thinking, this is it, man. This is the end of my life. It does not ever get any worse than this, because I was so humiliated. And you know, unfortunately, a lot of people ended their life in the last year and a half.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's gone on since the beginning of time, but what do you say to somebody that feels like, man, I've tried everything, I've done everything, there's no point to my life. Like, what do you say to them to help them get over that, get to the next moment?
Yeah, it's funny. I experienced something similar. I remember driving around in a Daewoo that was leaking antifreeze in the middle of winter, and I had it calculated, Ken, to the point where I knew how much water to put into it so that I could get from where I am to where I'm going, and it would drain the water out and wouldn't freeze and crack the block. Well, one
Wow.
day at about 11 p.m., as I was getting diapers for my youngest daughter, um, I came out of the pharmacy to a puddle of oil pouring out from the bottom of my car. I didn't have
Ah,
a cell phone, and I was about a couple miles, probably about 2 miles from home. And so I had to walk home in the freezing cold with the diapers, and I was, like, at that position. But it's interesting because, I try not to talk about things that I can't really truly relate to, because even in that moment where it was the deepest, darkest, like, just, this sucks, it was still on the upside of the miracle that had happened for me, right? So I still felt so much gratitude for life. And that conversation for me in that moment was a lot different because I was fired up. I said, I've got to do something about the quality of my life. I cannot keep putting my family and living the way that we're living right now. So, like, I was fired up by it. And so I got to tell you, depression and being depressed are two things that, despite everything that I went through in the prison system and the childhood, I'm just unfamiliar with. And so it's hard for me to relate to the question of somebody being to the point where nothing matters at this point, because there usually is something,
yeah.
or else you would have already done this, right? At this point, you've got something that's motivating you. Dig deep, find out what that why is. The why conversation, which, Ken, is super tough. I feel
Yep.
like a lot of people use their kids as a why, and I challenge that, because when they're adults and living their own life, what's going to motivate you to get up and get going then?
Yep.
So I would just challenge that person to find their why, dig deep, and find what's keeping them fired up and going now. So
This Brad Schroeder guy, don't you?
I do, yeah.
He says that's a great question. How do you control your thoughts and refrain from getting lost in the mental BS? How do you control your thoughts?
So, I mean, again, it's just gratitude, right? Gratitude
Yeah.
has taken over for me. And so, like, even like when I talk about my story, right? I talk about the idea that, like, okay, I went to foster care, my parents were addicts, and I went to prison. But guess what? I didn't go to prison in Brazil. I didn't go to foster care in a third world country. I didn't experience, so everything that I went through could have been so much worse. And so for me, I'm still so grateful. And
Yeah.
for me, gratitude just powers me through. Like, everything that I have today, and obviously, knock on wood, like, everything I have today could be taken from me, because right now my happiness is not dependent on any of it. So how then can I let the stress of a situation really impact my happiness? How can I let the stress of a situation really tear me down when I know that I've just got something so much greater to live for?
Yeah.
Um, and that's, to me, that's what powers through. I mean, honestly, I know, everybody's got life and everybody's got stresses that come along with life and family and business and things like that. But at the end of the day, if you understand that it could be so much worse, then what are we really complaining about?
Amen, dude. Amen. And I think you just answered Brian Schneider's question. What's your why?
So my why, to be clear, is to do for this world, right? Because of how much I took from this world. And so I feel like I owe it to the kids in the classroom who think the teacher isn't talking to them when they say that they can be anything they want to be. I owe it to that kid to get my message out as far and as wide as I can, so that they understand it's for them too.
Wow. Wow. Dude, you're a freaking rock star, man.
It's been an honor,
I'm
man.
so I saw a post of yours and I'm like, why haven't I asked Bobby to be on the show? And I reached out and said, dude, you need to be on my show. And
Honor.
I'm glad that I did. I'm really, really grateful you accepted. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your unbelievable wisdom. You know, there's a one of my favorite quotes is pain is the predecessor of all wisdom. And too many people go through a lot of BS and pain and then they use it as to stay in victim mode, right? And dude, man, gonna choke me up. But that moment in court when you were given a second chance, you were given the opportunity to change your life and change the world. And dude, you've taken it and you're continuing to take it. And I'd like you to come over and fix my roof.
So one last funny statement for everybody. I've never replaced a roof in my life, not even one single shingle. But
oh my Lord. That's
and
awesome.
one last thing. I just happen to have this here because I was going through pictures. This is me in prison. The day that I met my daughter here in this picture. This is the first time I met my daughter, was right there. I was 18.
Oh my God, dude. Wow.
It's crazy, man.
Not even the same guy.
Nope,
not the same guy.
Oh man, that's why people are like, if you could go back and tell him something. I was like, I'm not even familiar with that guy anymore. I don't know what I'd say to him. He wouldn't listen to me, I don't think. So,
would you smack the shit out of it?
I would definitely do that. Definitely do that.
I know, man. It's crazy. My wife was watching. So, dude, you know, thank you. I really mean it. I there's some interviews that touch my heart, and you know, this is one of them, man. This has been phenomenal. So, Bobby Jones, thank you. I appreciate you being here. Everybody watching, go follow Bobby. Is there a website or something? I guess I could have asked you that up front.
No, it's all good. So most of the time I send people to my Instagram. That's probably where I would update things the most. So that's it's Mr. Brightside. It's underscore though. So underscore Mr. underscore bright underscore side underscore. Yeah, sorry about that.
Dude, what? Underscore Mr. MR.
Yes.
Underscore
bright.
Right.
Underscore side.
Underscore.
Yeah, okay. It looked good. It just doesn't translate that well when I'm saying it in audio, especially.
So I used to have CEO underscore CSI.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Grant Cardone.
Yeah.
Called me out on a live stream and said, "Get rid of that underscore crap."
Yeah. Well, so I'm trying. I actually have an option on a couple of different platforms to get the actual Mr. Brightside line or handle. So I'm trying to collectively get them all, but it'll take some time, I'm sure.
You got this, man. Dude, you rock. Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on and sharing. You're amazing, dude. You're amazing. So everybody go follow Bobby over at that on Instagram. Underscore
Mr. Brightside. I still come up though. So.
There you go. Yeah, you'll find him. So Bobby, thank you, man. I appreciate you being here.
It's been an honor. It really has. Thank you.
You rock, brother. Thank you. We'll see you guys later. Have an awesome day. Thank you, Bobby.